Welcome in, sports fans. We have some stuff happening tomorrow, and the question is, what does it all mean? Bitcoin just popped up literally over $1,000 in minutes because of the good juju from everybody here. Bitcoin's at 90,700. Thank you, Sean Donnelly. Thank you, Zeno. Thank you, K18 Details. The whole gang is here. And I'm going to try to break down what this all means. And as you know, since November, I've been talking about SBR, Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Where are we going next? Tomorrow is the Super Bowl. And the question is, per the poll in the community here, what's going to happen? So let's get into it. And let me see. What should I do? Stick it up like this. Little me. I'll make an even smaller me. Let's talk about this thing that's happening on Friday. And not financial advice. You guys know that. And Ian McKay, best $9 a month investment ever. Legit difference. Thank you, Ian. And I'm just a cog in the machine, but the community is what matters, and everybody helps each other. And Sir Winston, thank you too. First of all, before we get into the news, shout out to Jamie Coutts, friend of the channel, part of the Real Vision crew. He had a little bit of a cool chart here, and he talks about how we had a bunch of stuff I posted in Patreon about the Dixie and the correlations of Bitcoin and what typically happens. I think it was last night, but Dixie did have its fourth largest negative 3-day move ever. And as Bitcoin nuked up and down, we did hit that crazy 78K level. I think it was 78K. We're 91 now. Crazy. But it's very volatile. And of course, I mentioned as well, we had the worst Feb in a decade. But meanwhile, if you look at the top 200 crypto index, it puked once again, and it's down for 50% from all-time highs. And this typically, historically, I think what Jamie's trying to get at here, historically, when this happens, it means we're ready to start the next leg of the bull run. The capitulation is over. It's up from here, and we have everything else I pointed to yesterday, all the macro factors, all the liquidity, all pointing to what's going on. But we do have some bad news and good news I'll park for the very end as well. But let's get into what we need to talk about today. Is the Super Bowl of Bitcoin happening tomorrow? Lutnick, Howard Lutnick, the Commerce Secretary, who is a hardcore Bitcoiner from Cantor Fitzgerald, he believes Trump will unveil the SBR at the summit, or at least the strategy for it. They can't just announce, by the way, that they're going to buy X billion dollars of Bitcoin overnight. Government moves slow. I always say, as jokingly, at the speed of government. Thank you, Preppy Gal and Myron and Cybertruck Crypto. And you guys are all amazing. But Lutnick knows these guys have the inside baseball. And as you know as well, since November, I was very peculiarly interested in Michael Saylor smiling ear to ear since November. And you've heard me saying that many times, so you're bored of it. All of a sudden, yesterday, everybody on Twitter is saying the same thing. But check out Howard Lutnick's smile. Big smile. This guy, Michael Saylor, again, friend of the channel, he is not known to be smiling ear to ear all the time. He can't help himself. He's been smiling since November. And he gives his thoughts on the White House Crypto Summit. He did mention the government needs to buy 1 million Bitcoin or more over the next 4 years. The question is, can they do that? Or even a larger percentage? So these guys know what's going on, and Saylor will be there tomorrow as well. And David Sachs posted this as well a few hours ago. Over the past decade, the federal government sold approximately 195,000 Bitcoin for proceeds of $366 million. If the government had held the Bitcoin, it would be worth over $17 billion today. And that's how much it's cost American taxpayers. The fact that they didn't have a long-term strategy. And that's a big part of it. And remember, David Sachs was lamenting the U.S. government sale of Bitcoin. It's kind of funny because I remember when Chamath did the same thing a couple of months ago on the All In Pod. He was lamenting his sale. Like, Chamath is one of the biggest Bitcoin holders. They had, I think, 100,000 Bitcoin, but sold it way too early because his partners didn't believe in it. And again, this message comes from Sachs on the eve of the White House's ever first crypto summit. Oh my goodness, how everything has changed so much. It's crazy. But Bitcoin is expected to be the prominent asset in this, or at least the topic in this summit as well. And they need a long-term strategy. Where are we now with Poly Market? 65% chance of SBR. It's been very stable ever since, I guess, the beginning of March, but it did jump up a lot on March 3rd. It went up from 30% to 65% chance. That's very positive. If we get to 80% chance of something happening on Poly Market, it's a given. It's a lock. It's a sure thing. So for those Super Bowl bettors, it could be good. And I will do pros and cons of where I think will happen on Friday towards the end as well. And from AshCrypto as well, this is the Bernstein Fund, who are very pro-Bitcoin as well, said the U.S. could either issue debt or sell gold reserves to fund Bitcoin purchases for the SBR. Massive. There's many options. And the debt is through the roof. Anyway, I'll talk more about that at the very end as well. So are they going to do it? There's so much stuff just pointing in the right direction that it's kind of uncanny. And this just got broke minutes before I went live. The White House is preparing to provide further clarification on its strategic Bitcoin and crypto reserve either later today or tomorrow. This is from Fox Business, Charles Gasparino, and he has the inside scoop as to what's happening within the White House too. So, I mean, the point I'm trying to make here is all roads are pointing in one direction. They know last time David Sachs got up with these farmer senators and stuff, it was a complete nothing burger. Everybody was crushed and disappointed. The Bitcoin price fell. This time, it appears to be different. How different? I'm not sure. We'll get to that in a second. So let's move on. Also, there's other stuff grumbling behind the scenes. And I tweeted this earlier. The great state of Texas just passed the so-called bill, and it doesn't mean it's ready to go, everybody. It just passed in the Senate. And what that typically means, it still needs the House approval and it still needs the governor's signature. The world is very toxic out there. You know, you share, you retweet something with a piece of good news, which is paving the way for them to build a reserve. But the people say, oh, not going to have it. I don't know. I don't know why some people are so negative. Anyhow, just to put this in perspective as well, Texas is a very large state. I think the GDP is about 2.4 trillion. The GDP of Canada is 2.1 trillion. The GDP of Brazil is 2.1 trillion. The GDP of Russia is 1.8 trillion. The GDP of South Korea is 1.7 trillion. Okay? The Texas economy is massive. And by the way, the California economy is a lot bigger than the Texas economy. And the Florida economy as well is not as big as Texas, but getting close too. So these are big, big countries unto themselves. So we'll see what happens there. But the reason this is important, it'll send a signal to other places around the world, other states, other countries that these things are coming. And the front runners so far in the state reserve race, not just the federal level, but also on the state level, Utah primed in the lead here. And then Arizona apparently is not going to get it because their governor will probably fail due to the governor. I don't know. I don't follow the politics there. But the question is, which will finish the line first, Texas or Utah? And then we'll see if that triggers some crazy game theory. Either way, it's going to be great. Yet another accumulator of Bitcoin. Now, the attendees, quick update on this from AM Crypto. Apparently, there's people like Brad Garlinghouse. I mean, why is he going there? Apparently, he's invested $50 million of XRP, I don't know, into some type of lobbying organization to get Americans to adopt XRP. It's like, come on. You know, Brian Armstrong, that's good. CZ, that would surprise me. He just got out of a U.S. jail, but who knows? Michael Saylor, he'll be great there as well. And Sergey from Chainlink and a bunch of others. We don't know if they're going to make it there. I know Kyle Samani had worked closely with David Sachs, so he's probably a shoe-in. And we're not sure if Kathy Wood will be there or Vitalik or Jeremy Allaire for Circle. Jeremy Allaire for Circle would be an important one because of the importance of stablecoins. Paolo from Tether. And Toly, we'll talk about him in a minute too. But some of the good minds are there as well. Now, this is also shows you that sometimes poly market can be wrong. It says Charles Hoskinson, 33% chance of him attending. No, he's not attending. He didn't get an invite, which is proper order. Sorry to the Cardano fans. Cardano has been pumping since the Trump administration came into power because they felt from rumors that were out there that Charles is basically advising the White House. Not the case. And Toly, another guy, prefers no reserve. I found this to be very interesting. And in fact, I retweeted because he's a special cat. When it comes to analyzing companies, you got to look at who is leading the company. I know people groan, they believe some leaders are just bad people, but this guy is special and he doesn't believe in a strategic Bitcoin reserve. And his order of preference is, this is incredible, no reserve, because if you want decentralization to fail, you'd put the government in charge of it. So that's a very valid point. Two, let the states do their own reserve thing, as Texas is doing now and Utah and other states. Or if there has to be a reserve, base it on objectively measurable requirements, like what I do, data, things like adoption, things like use cases, things like, fit for the economy and how it can drive growth, etc. So I thought this was crazy. And it's rare you see this kind of leadership in crypto because he focuses on principles and decentralization and fairness instead of just trying to line his pockets. And you know who exactly is trying to do that. So this is the way to build trust. And shout out to Toly for that too. Also, let's try summarize where we are with this whole thing. Now, we've been down the path before where we expect, strategic business reserve is going to happen tomorrow and Bitcoin's going to go to $1 million. That's not how things work in the real world. But what are the pros about this being a seldom used event? And this is kind of an interesting list that I gave a little bit of thought to. First of all, speculation has been there for a while. You can see Bitcoin's above 90K again. It came up a lot ever since this summit was announced. Okay, so typically when things make a big move before something actually happens, it means it's already priced in. And there's been a ton of chatter on X and other places that have driven prices up as well. And also, we have a historic precedent that last time that something like this was announced after Trump's earlier reserve tease, it suggests markets might be overhyped now. There's FX Street as well, believes there could be a profit-taking dip, which typically happens unless they announce something very extraordinary. And the cons, again, expected outcomes. Everybody expects big news. Will that not come? If it doesn't, it could trigger a sell-off. And leaks and rumors may have already priced in the news. But there are some people getting themselves in position, which we'll talk about in a second too. And there's no fresh details. And that's probably why Fox News said maybe we're going to come out with something new as well regarding this. Now, could it be a buy the news event? If so, that would be one of the first in a very long time. So maybe there are some surprise announcements. We know what some of them could be, like zero capital gains on crypto sales. Wow, can you imagine that? That would be incredible. Altcoin support could exceed expectations, spark some fresh buying, maybe trigger an alt season. Who knows? Some of the attendees as well, like Saylor and David Sachs' leadership and Lutnick, could drive a major policy shift. It might not all be all talk. There could be some action buried in there too. And there could be some new pro-crypto policies that could kick off a new bullish trend. And even if they just say something like, our plan over the next 4 years is to buy 1 million Bitcoin, then it's off to the races, ladies and gentlemen. We are going to make it, which is cool. It could also trigger some other stuff too. If they do announce something like, it's going to be half Ethereum, half Bitcoin, that could trigger a big rally in Ethereum. You never know. Sometimes decisions are made which are illogical, and that could dilute focus on Bitcoin specific reserve, which I think is a bad idea. You ask anybody, SBR should be Bitcoin only. That's it. And if the summit, however, rehashes known plans without bold moves, that could fail to ignite pressure. Either way, I think the time, I could be wrong on this, 1:30 p.m. Eastern tomorrow. I found that on the web, but the web sometimes doesn't have the right information. But if that is the case, what is interesting, that's happening during stock market hours. If something big happened, that could ignite the ETFs as well into the weekend. Either way, we'll be watching live. Now, other crazy stuff that's happening behind the scenes. The WLF, which is the I forget the name of the WLF. Anyway, it's the the Trump Fund, World something Fund, World Leadership for World Liberty Fund. I can see it there. World Liberty Fund. They just bought in the last few hours $10 million worth of Bitcoin and $10 million of ETH right before the summit. So what does that mean? I'm not sure, but it was wrapped Bitcoin too. So anybody buys anything wrapped, you deserve what's coming to you. Wrapped is bad. Always buy the pure form. In other news too, the World Liberty Financial Partner, apparently, allegedly, from Watcher Guru, is partnering with Sui for the SBR launch. Why did they not pick Solana? Probably because Toly doesn't give a rat's butt about it as well. But anyway, what this also does, it tells us maybe there are more stepping stones in place to really say that this thing is real. Again, World Liberty Financial partners with Sui to launch Strategic Reserve, as in a fund or reserve that's managed from the blockchain. Either way, we'll see what happens. Again, this could also trigger some altcoin season as well. Now, the big question for you all, before we get to some final pieces of news and the poll results, which I know are probably coming soon if the team has them, will the Crypto Summit be the first ever Buy the News event? Show of hands? Or will it be, I always say this word, a nothing burger? Let me know. I'll announce those poll results in a minute when they get compilated by the team. The other thing that's important to note here as well, again, more tailwinds for Bitcoin. This is from Quinton. The US debt crisis is unavoidable. All right. As I say, if the US was a company, it would be bankrupt and dead a long time ago, ladies and gentlemen. But now there's 9.2 trillion. I think I said last week it was 10 trillion. I was close. 9.2 trillion of debt is maturing and needs refinancing at higher rates. These rates need to come down. All right. If not, that's about 25.4% of the total debt. If it doesn't come down, basically, they'll just be funding this forever. Okay. The only solution to fund this forever is money printing, which will drive currency debasement, which means your blueberries will get more expensive. And it'll drive hard assets up like Bitcoin too. Bitcoin will explode. Either way, we know rate cuts are coming, as I shared as well. 3 rate cuts are now back on the table for 2025. They'd gone for a while because of fears about inflation, but they are back on. That is the first big tailwind for Bitcoin, with or without a strategic Bitcoin reserve. Remember that. Next, from James Van Straten. He's getting pretty hot under the collar with his political point of views, but I must say I agree with him wholeheartedly. It's pretty evident at this point with the mammoth spike in German and UK yields, Europe and UK are throwing whatever they have left at this war. They are building up their military industrial complex, their war machine, like they haven't in a very long time. And this too will drive a lot of chaos and disarray, etc. Currencies will be debased at a record pace. European equities are currently pricing this in. They're getting hit. And this is extremely bullish for Bitcoin too. So again, we've seen gold fire up all this year. And because of fears like this, global debt spiral, world is a complete mess, etc., etc. Something will break. Either way, no matter which way we look at, all roads of the chaos around the world lead to Bitcoin, as I've also been saying for 4 years. So repeating myself, but this is exactly what's going on. This is exactly what's happening. Let's talk about those results so far. Nothing burger, 60% believe the summit will be a nothing burger and 39% believe it'll be huge. That's pretty good, actually, because if you watch this channel, I normally think many things are nothing burgers, but they could sneak something in. All I think is one bit of specificity of something like, okay, we're going to buy 1 million Bitcoin. We're going to do it in 4 years. We're going to buy 250,000 Bitcoin a year. That's it. That's it. Because we know how hard and scarce this thing is. It's going to be very hard. If anybody tries to jump into the market right now and buy 1 million Bitcoin, it's impossible. Look, Saylor's been stacking for over 4 years, 4.5 years. He hasn't got to 500,000 yet. Okay. And he now runs 30% of the bond market through Bitcoin backed bonds, which is crazy. Anyway, convertible bond market, I should say, not bond market. So with that, everybody, hope you like the content. It's exciting for tomorrow, our little Super Bowl for the Bitcoin fans and the crypto fans. I'm hoping they ignite something. I'm hoping they are specific about something, but there's no guarantees in markets. And right now, check, Bitcoin fell just under 90K as I'm speaking. So we had $1,000 swing in my 20-minute show. Either way, things are volatile. Wear your seatbelts, everybody. Thank you, TND Tesla. Thank you, Sean Donnelly. Thank you to all the crew, K8, everybody for being here. And hope I didn't miss any quite. We have somebody in Florida. Greetings from sunny Bradenton, Florida. Thanks, James. Thank you, Jeff. And yes, people are still buying. Thank you all. Have a good night. See you tomorrow. Bye-bye.